Hey church family, it's David Russo here, and I get to share with you all today about Deuteronomy. We're just entering into a new phase in our Bible study together of going through the book of Deuteronomy, and I want to give you a little bit of an overview before we dive into chapter 2. So at this point in the nation of Israel's journey through the wilderness, Deuteronomy is looking at Moses' command to the people to turn back to the Lord in all of their ways. He spends the first part of the book describing where they've been in the first couple chapters, and then for the majority of it, he goes over the law of God, saying to them, if you will hear, if you will listen, if you will see God in his goodness and love him for who he is, he will bless you in all of your ways, and he will lead you into the promised land. And so we're picking up here at chapter 2, and I just want to read to us one verse to kind of establish this idea of the power of one turn, the power of one single turn. So let's look at chapter 2, verse 2 and 3. It says, "Then the Lord said to me," being Moses, "You have made your way around the hill country long enough. Now turn north." Now for Israel, north is symbolic. There's been this 40-year gap where they've turned away from the north because they did not have the faith to believe God's promises that he would deliver the people into their hand if they were to go into Canaan, if they were to take the northern territory. And at this point, he said, you've wandered in the wilderness long enough. You've done your time, so to say. You've been just straggling wilderness people for so long, but it's time to turn north. And I can't help but think that Moses knew the power that one single turn could make. Moses was the same Moses that set up a bronze serpent in the wilderness, and when the people were being attacked by snakes in the camp because they disobeyed God, he said, all you need to do is make one turn. Just turn your eyes and look at this bronze serpent. And we know from the New Testament that that bronze serpent was a picture of Jesus' judgment of sin on the cross. Jesus was the recipient of the judgment of God to free us from the power of the snake that deceived Adam and Eve in the garden. And so Moses knew prophetically in that moment when those people were turning their eyes to that serpent that he set up on that staff in the middle of the wilderness, that they would be freed from their sin if they acted in faith and turned toward it. And I'm sure this is in the memory banks of Moses as he's now delivering this word to the people, saying, you now need to turn north. You now need to look to the promised land and go in. And I'll give you a little bit of extra credit. One last thing, if you want to look into this painting. It really paints this picture, no pun intended, perfectly for me. But if you look up Rembrandt's painting of the philosopher in meditation, it's one of the best pictures of this idea that I've ever seen in a painting. Rembrandt was an artist who believed that light in his painting was an image, it was a symbol of the divine. And so he uses light in his art to represent God, the face of God or the nature of God, the eminence, the radiation of God. And in this painting, we see this philosopher who's just sitting there back against his chair, and he's looking out at this window, and he is just bathed in light. This light is just covering his face, it's covering his body, and he is just resting in that light. And in other paintings by Rembrandt, you'll see pictures where the character in the subject is turned away from the light, and the entire scene is full of darkness. It's full of shadows, and it's gloomy, it's eerie. But when his character in that painting, the philosopher, is turned towards the light, his entire body is filled with light. And I think Rembrandt did understand the power that one turn has in a person's life. And so, church, I want to challenge all of us today that we are only one turn away from looking into the face of God, that we can turn our face to Jesus, we can behold him, we can gaze upon his beauty, and we can be basked in his light today if we will just turn. Love you, church family. Have a blessed day.